Our faith tested, tried, divine intervention, witnessed and verified, and the royal succession. Through each capitulate, benefits we see, the promises will flow, the promises of deity.
While the aura of any woman, as the visible manifestation of the soul within, can be seen by only one man, the keeper is given the ability to discern much within the soul of any person. Euphrates Camargue, Capitulo 24.
The dress was very high quality, the fabric felt extraordinary. When she put it on, it fit her perfectly. She caressed the silky soft material of her sleeve as she looked at the cheaper dresses hanging in the closet. She was turning away from the closet when a light tap on the door heralded another visitor. The door swung open as she approached it. It was Gregorio. He looked at her and then froze, staring at her. She felt the heat of a blush rise at the intensity of his expression.
I do not think, Wraith, I ever appreciated before just how beautiful you are.
His voice was solemn.
I have never seen that dress before.
I wasn't sure what I should wear,
she admitted.
But then a couple of women popped in and suggested I wear this. It was already in my closet.
Oh?
He grinned.
Did they give their names?
Cassie and Lilane.
He extended an arm to her and she set her hand on it. He lifted his other hand to settle it over hers, caressing it briefly before leading her towards the door.
You will meet both of them again tonight.
During the long walk, she noticed beautiful paintings adorned the walls. The trim between ceiling and walls was intricate, the attention to detail typical of late 19th and early 20th century architecture. The furniture was beautifully preserved. Antiques were everywhere.
I didn't realize you were royalty when you told me you had relatives who held elevated positions within your government.
Normally it is unremarkable, particularly since our nation is so small.
He looked away from her, a solemn expression on his face.
It is only worth noting when one has the misfortune to be born to one of the hereditary positions. Since I was born second in line to the position of keeper, I am aware the obligations I have may change if my cousin is unable to take up his duties.
She felt fear.
Are you telling me I might not remain your assistant if you have to take the position?
It will be more than a year before we will know. You will remain my assistant at least that long. I rather treasure having you here with me,
he said before looking away. When they entered the large sitting room, Wraith saw the beautiful brunette, Cassie, holding the arm of a man with dark receding hair.
Sorry, Wraith, my family is rather fond of formal introductions. We will try to keep it short.
Gregorio whispered in her ear. His arm went around her waist and he guided her towards the king. Next to him was the beautiful Lilane.
Isaiah.
Gregorio bowed to his cousin.
Wraith, this is Lilane Zakarian, Queen of Estolia, mother of Leonidas, the future king of Estolia, and most importantly, the one who keeps the soul of the king. Lilane, this is Wraith Verone. I understand the two of you met briefly earlier.
Lilane smiled and said,
Cassie and I invaded her bedroom when she wasn't wearing anything more than a towel.
She giggled and glanced over at the brunette, gesturing her over.
Luckily, she wasn't offended. I see the dress fits you perfectly. I must introduce Cassie.
She dragged Cassie up close to her side.
Cassiopeia Luke Dumaine. And her husband, Morgan Luke Dumaine. This is Wraith Verone. Cassie is my husband's sister.
It is so wonderful to meet you formally,
Cassie said. She dimpled a smile at her husband before saying,
I was enthralled the minute I met you, Wraith. Such a lovely name. You are a different build from Lilane and myself. When I saw you, I instantly had dozens of ideas.
Wraith wondered what this woman was babbling about. Or perhaps, she thought to herself, bubbling over was a better description. Her husband groaned and covered his eyes in mock agony. Lilane's laughter tinkled through the room. She grinned over at her husband before explaining to Wraith.
When Cassie gets ideas, we all watch out. Her ideas can have a life of their own.
She moved closer to the other woman and took one of her hands and said,
Best to tell us all quickly about your ideas so we'll know what to expect.
Cassie's husky laughter followed that statement and she shook her head.
It is nothing like that, Lil. It is just that Wraith looks like she is the perfect size and perfect age for some fashion ideas I have.
She looked Wraith up and down and asked,
How old are you? 24?
I'll be 25 in a few months.
Wraith admitted.
There.
Cassie said triumphantly to Lilane.
The perfect age. Only a few years younger than us. The same age when we got married. And she is perfect for the colours of Estolia. I know we have a celebration planned in 2 weeks for Gregorio's birthday.
She stepped closer to Wraith and grabbed both of her hands to plead.
Please, will you allow me to design something for you to wear?
Wraith felt uncomfortable with so many people looking at her and agreed quickly.
I knew you would say yes. I already told the royal dressmaker Natasha what I wanted.
Cassie bubbled.
She tells me she loves speaking with me because I always have the most extraordinary ideas for beautiful dresses. Unfortunately, I cannot sew a button, and certainly could never make my ideas. But she tells me I have a gift with words, and one of her apprentices has a gift to listen and make my ideas. We will all wear the colours of Estolia. She will design a green dress for Lilane.
Cassie paused only long enough to pick up a lock of Lilane's red hair before continuing.
And a purple dress for me and a golden dress for you, Wraith. The dresses are quite simple, but we will look most elegant in them.
Cassie was one of the world's happy people. It was no wonder Morgan Luke Dumaine was in love with her. Wraith was reminded of the day she met Gregorio. It was the day after her birthday, and she was lamenting the fact that she would never marry at the perfect age of 23. In 4 months, she would be 25.
From a young age, I was convinced the perfect age to marry was 23. My sister was on her 3rd marriage by the time she was that age.
She told the 2 women.
I'm not so sure that there is a perfect age to marry.
Morgan joined the conversation.
I would say Cassie was utterly perfect when we married, and she was 24.
As the couple's eyes locked, and they shared a moment of silent communication, Wraith looked away. Her eyes met Gregorio's and, for a heartbeat, the rest of the people in the room faded out. She was reminded of the recurring dream she had the previous night, of Gregorio declaring himself hers, telling her she was the one woman worthy of breaking his celibacy, the woman with whom he wished to spend eternity. She flushed and her eyes left his, lingering on his lips before she turned away slightly.
If I can pry Wraith away from the 2 of you,
Gregorio teased the 2 women.
I would like to introduce her to my mother. You will have the chance to corner her some other time.
His hand on her shoulder urged her towards his father, who was speaking with his uncle.
My dear, you look exquisite.
Theo said to her.
Thank you for doing us the honour of joining us, and for being willing to relocate to Estolia. I would like to introduce you to the most important person in the entire nation, Georgiana Zakarian, the woman who keeps my soul safe and who guides me, as I myself guide the nation spiritually. No other person holds as much power. Georgiana, this is Wraith Veroni. She will be assisting Gregorio with the royal stables. He will also begin his elder year quite soon, so he might receive the necessary training, just in case Zeke is unable to take up his hereditary role.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
Wraith said. Georgiana was a remarkable-looking woman. Her hair was silver blonde with undertones of ripe wheat yellow. Wraith knew now where Gregorio got his blonde coloring. She had been in some sort of devastating accident that scarred her face and deprived her of one of her arms below the elbow. She wore a patch over one eye.
Welcome to Estolia,
she said, her voice mellow but deep. She looked at her son.
I'm glad you were willing to do as your father asked and come back home to us.
Gregorio embraced his mother.
I could not deny Father's request, not in light of Zeke's injury. Once I decided to return, I knew it was the right decision. I am glad to be back home for good.
Next, Gregorio led Wraith over to the former king, who stood next to a petite woman with dark hair that had a sheen of iron grey at each temple.
Wraith, this is Jacqueline Zakarian, the former Queen of Estolia. She goes by Jackie. Aunt Jackie, this is Wraith Verone, my assistant.
Jackie embraced Wraith.
You grace our home with your presence,
she said.
We are especially grateful for your willingness to join us here in Estolia in this difficult time.
Her chin trembled and she looked away, squeezing her eyes shut before taking a deep breath to continue speaking. Wraith had the feeling that she was garrulous in the face of the emotional turmoil of having her son so grievously injured.
We are quite blessed that my husband's late uncle was an orthopedic surgeon in the early half of this century, before being a surgeon was fashionable, and before he had to retire to become the king of Estolia.
I'm constantly amazed by the way deity impacts our lives.
Gregorio said.
Healing bones was one of Uncle Max's obsessions. Because of this, our nation had the infrastructure that was necessary to save Zeke's leg.
Jackie nodded.
Yes, they say the quality of our orthopedic wing of the hospital is unsurpassed.
She looked down at her hands. Wraith saw she was trembling.
I was told we came quite close to losing him.
She looked up again and smiled, brushing away a couple of tears.
Theo's blessing was clear. Zeke will survive and he will keep his leg.
When you chase your dreams, your imagination strings, and your heart is pure, and you're absolutely sure your dreams will in turn, with your resolve so firm, embrace all of you, your soul through